Hey guys, welcome back to Snack Time. My name is Ben, and in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at WUD, or also commonly known as What's Up Docker. So if you're like me and you run a whole bunch of different containers in Docker, keeping up with updates can seem like a really huge task, especially if you're not a gigantic fan of going to Docker Hub and looking at like release notes or any of that sort of stuff. So this What's Up Docker program was released, and I think it's amazing because it will help you be notified whenever there's an update to one of your containers. So let's take a look at it real quick. So if I hop over here, this is the web page that you're going to be seeing right here. This is GitWUD and .github.io. So the easiest way to find this, honestly, is just if you're on Google, just do a search for What's Up Docker. And it should be like one of the first or second things that you're going to run into. So if we click this, it'll take you to the GitHub page. And what we're going to do is we are going to just pretty much just hit the user documentation. So once you're here, this is a great place to start to find out a little bit more about WUD. So we can hit the get started and it'll walk you through the installation. I'm going to show you that in just a second. First, I want to show you the actual platform and show you what it looks like, show you the kind of the configuration. There's not a ton to really go into, so I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time in there. I'll spend a little bit. So when you sign in, by default, there's no authentication. We will be covering that a little bit later on. We're going to be using Nginx Proxy Manager's authentication. But there is also some configuration you can do within What's Up Docker itself. But when you come in here, it's going to tell you, hey, there's an update available. Awesome. So we click on that and we can see the update information. And it's just telling you, hey, the container WUD has an update available. Here's the image information and here's the update. As far as I know, you cannot update from this platform, but it will notify you and then you can update it from Portainer. If I'm wrong, please point that out to me because that would be good to know. If we drop under configurations on the left, there's a couple of different options that we have. We have the authentication. Right now we don't have any. We have the registries that it's pulling from. Awesome. And we have the server, a little bit about the server, a little bit of information there. We have triggers. So if you do define a trigger, what it's going to do is it's going to notify you if there is an update. And there's a bunch of different platforms you can use for that notification. One that I think is really cool is you can set up like Discord. So if you have your own like private Discord server, it can update you through that. That's kind of cool. All right, so watchers, this is just kind of how often it runs. None of this is really definable here. And obviously at the bottom, we have our dark mode. That's the most important part. So there's not a ton to do here really, other than just be able to view your settings, which you define all of that stuff as environment variables under Docker when you're deploying the container. So let's do this. Let's move on and let me show you how to set it up on your environment. And that way you can kind of experiment with it. I'm going to show you a couple of different things. I'm going to show you how to set it up using Nginx Proxy Manager. I'll also cover a little bit if you just want to run it locally, which is totally understandable. You may not want this thing facing the internet. So let's do this. Let's hop into our installation. The very first place we're going to head off to is the documentation. Obviously, it's a good place to start. Let's hop on down to Quick Start. This kind of just runs you through the basics. If you just want to get it up and going, this is a great place to start, especially if you're going to be running it only locally. We're also going to take this same little compose file here. We're going to plop it into Portainer and we're going to make some changes because, as I said before, we're going to use Nginx, but I'll cover, what to do if you're not going to do that a little later on. Now, once we copy this to our clipboard, let's head over to Portainer and we're going to go to stacks. We're going to create a new stack here. I'm just going to call this D, and paste that information here. I don't need the version number. Sometimes Portainer gets a little pissed off if you leave it there for some reason, but I'm also not going to need my ports. So let's take a quick peek at this, and let me show you a little bit about the command, what it's doing. So starting a service, what's up Docker. The image that we're going to be pulling is this one. Container name will be WUD. And this is the volumes that it's going to establish to be able to pull information about Docker. So you can leave that alone. And for the ports, we are going to comment them out because we're going to be using the Nginx. But if you are not using Nginx and you're running this strictly locally, we're not publicly facing this thing at all, leave those uncommented and then enjoy, because that's pretty much about all you need to do, really, because you'll be able to access it on port 3000. If you decide you want it to be on a different port, just change this first 3000 to be whatever you want, and it will just forward that traffic to the 3000 on the container side. So if that's where you leave, then hey, cool, thanks for dropping by. The rest of us are going to go and proceed a little bit on and go to Nginx, just in case we do want this to be internet facing. And while we're here, I do want to point out one more thing really quick. So if you do want to add some authentication and you don't want to use Nginx, you don't want it to be internet facing, but you do want to add a little bit of a security, then what you can do is you can come under here. We can go back to our little documents page. We're going to go under configuration and authentication. And what we can do is basic. And so if you look right here, this is telling you exactly what you need to do to set this up. This is going to be defining your username. It's also going to be defining a hash password, and it'll tell you how to generate that hash password, so you're not just putting it in plain text. And if you scroll down a little bit, here is a cool little example of exactly what it would look like if you had decided to put that in there as some environment variables and just do some basic authentication. You do have the option for OpenID. I'm not going to really cover that here, but while we are here, let's cover one more thing before we deploy that we may want to configure before hitting that big deploy button. If you do want it to be able to notify you on different platforms, this is also something you'll be setting up under the environment variables too. So if we click under our triggers, you'll see that we have a whole bunch of options to choose from. I have a little bit of AppRiser, we have Godify, we have Slack and SMTP and Telegram, and at the very bottom we got Discord. That's one I want. So if we look at Discord, check this out. We have a bunch of really cool options here. I'm gonna make myself small, and you can see that we have a bunch of things that we can configure, and the author has also done us one really awesome thing and showed us exactly how to set it up. So here's a good example. So if you just wanted to set it up on your Discord server, you would set up a webhook and you would give it a name, and you would take this right here, you copy this to the clipboard, and you'd hop on over to a Portainer, and instead of all this, you would just paste this guy. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. And obviously there's a couple of things it wants you to fill in the blank, so the periods aren't going to help you out too much. But we're not going to do that quite here. I'm just showing you how you can set this up to use Discord, but not going to really cover that so much. Just wanted to get you up and going. You can always come back here and make changes later on. Even if you deploy it now, you can come back and redeploy it later on. There's no just storage that we're defining here because there's really nothing that it's going to be retaining. There's no information it needs to keep on any sort of volume. So let's do this. Let's hop on down and let's deploy this. All right, cool. We are all deployed. Excellent. Let's hop over to WUD. Green, love it. All right, and let's go to our containers. So now we are back at our containers. Let's head under our Nginx proxy manager. Let's scroll all the way to the bottom and let's select our network. So if we zoom in here, I'm going to show you that we're looking for our WUD default. All right, let's select that guy. And let's hit join network over here on the far right. Awesome. We are in the network. Good. Scroll down. We can see we're all joined. We got an IP address. We're good to go. All right, let's do this. Let us now set up our subdomain. I'm going to be using Namecheap. However, feel free to use whatever registrar or DNS server that you want to. I'm going to be copying my external IP address that I already have set up here, and I'm going to add a new record. I'm just going to call it WUG. Dang it, D. Man, I don't know why I keep doing that. All right, let's paste this and let's save. I'll call it WUG. It's the new name for it. All right, cool. All right, so now that that's done, let's head over to our Nginx proxy manager as well. Let the DNS propagate a little bit. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is obviously we do not want this internet facing without any sort of authentication. So I'm going to set up just some basic authentication within Nginx proxy manager. And then this is a good lesson to learn because you can do this with pretty much any internet, any internet site you have going through Nginx. So let's hop over to access lists and let's define a new access list. All right. And what we're going to do here is we're going to give this a name. I'm just going to call it WUD. I spelled it right that time, I think. And I'm going to go under authorization and I want to establish just a very basic username and password. So I'm just going to call this Sinhow, and I'm just going to type in a really basic password. I'm going to add this here. Actually, don't click add. You would think that would be add, but it's just going to give you another username password field, and it's going to wipe out what you just had. Fun. All right, next up, instead of clicking add, we're going to go over to access. And now we're going to set this so that it knows that the default action can be allow for all. So what we're doing here is it's basically saying that the default action is deny for all. What we want to do is we could do a couple things. If you wanted to, you could specify your external IP address. You could, do the subnet if your IP address changes, or you could, do what we're going to do right here, and we're going to do all. This will say that pretty much anybody can authenticate with this. Now, probably not best practice, but this is what we're going to do here. All right, so we're going to hit save. All right, after it's done its churning and bubbling, we see that we have our access list created. We don't have any hosts assigned to it quite yet, but that's going to change. Let's go to hosts, proxy hosts, and we're going to add a new one. We're going to call this wud.sinhow.com. Awesome. And for our host name / IP address, we're going to hop back over to Portainer and go under containers. And it looks like we called this WUD. That's fine. And now let's hop on back and we're going to just put that in there. Now it's asking us for our port. Do you remember what our port was? If you guessed 3000, then you guessed right. If you didn't remember, that is okay. I have bad memory too sometimes. We could always pop back over to our documentation here and just look at our quick start, and we see that 3000 is the port on the container side. That's the one that we want. All right. Let's do 3000. I'm going to block common exploits and WebSocket support. That's fine. And now I'm going to do my access list. Instead of doing it publicly available, I'm going to select my WUD access list that I just created. All right. And let's see, let's save this. And now let's go back under there and let's establish our SSL. We want to encrypt our traffic. So I'm going to hit edit. And let's go under SSL. Let's request a new one. Let's force it and let's agree. Save. All right, assuming we have done everything right, we should be good to go on our encryption. And Let's Encrypt is awesome. It's up and good to go. Okay, now let's test it out and let's see So we're looking for two things. We're looking for obviously the web page, but we're also looking for it to prompt us for username and password. Let's see if it does either or both of those. So I had to open up an incognito window because I had signed in previously and my cookie was still valid, but I opened up an incognito, I went to the web page, and now it is asking me for my username and password. Let's try a bad one. Oh, it did not work. Let's try the good one. Bada bing, bada boom. It worked. Awesome. Cool. And there's my update that I have to do. Sweet. Well, that pretty much sums up WUD, or What's Up Docker. If you guys found this video beneficial, you enjoyed it, please consider giving me a thumbs up. Or if you hated it, you hate Docker, and you hate every single time that I talk about it, maybe give me a thumbs down and we'll do something else. All right. Well, hope you take it easy. Hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you next time.